This is an examination of the hidden human condition.
This is the Hidden Killers Podcast.
With Tony Brueski.
Nima Rahmani is with us, president of the West Coast Trial Lawyers Association and former federal prosecutor. Nima, let's talk evidence in the case against Bryan Kohberger. Given that we have the gag order in the case, so we don't know exactly what is kind of coming through. We've seen far more than I actually was expecting to see prior to a trial. But with what we know thus far, as this continues on, how do you anticipate the defense handling character testimonies from Kohberger's peers and professors and academic advisors who'd likely be called at some point to talk about his character, what they know about Bryan Kohberger? And from what we know, not the most social of human beings.
Yeah, I think they're going to try to keep a lot of that out, and we've seen. So obviously the defense in this case, it's going to be two-tiered, right? They're going to focus on the jury, but we know that oftentimes they're really looking at those appellate courts. This is a death penalty case, so there's those mandatory state and federal appeals. And, that prior bad acts evidence, 404B character evidence, that's something that appellate courts really take a close look at. So the prosecution might want to play a little bit more conservatively, not really pile on with those, character witnesses, because that may be a possible reason why conviction can be overturned. But,
okay.
But I agree. And I think from, the defense theory of the case, I think they're going to focus on so many people coming and going from that house, just a single source of DNA that's being reported. At least according to the defense motions, there's the DNA of multiple other people who were there. And frankly, for a crime scene that's been so gruesome and horrific and bloody, you'd expect there to be a lot more DNA than just one single source of a knife sheath.
Yeah, I'm curious, put on your theoretical hat for a moment. Work with me on this. There's a lot of information, I'm sure, on his cell phone. As we were talking earlier, possibly some stalking direction that they may look in terms of a motive and things of that nature. What do you think we're going to end up finding out once this thing does make it to trial in terms of what is on Kohberger's phone? Are we going to be blown away by information that really solidly, even more than it already does, points to his guilt? Is there going to be a treasure trove of planning, of images, of stalking on that device?
I don't know. Even though there is that broad gag order, this is the biggest case in the country right now. This and obviously the Trump cases. And I would expect there to be some sort of leak if there was that smoke and gun evidence,
Yep.
like the victim's DNA in his car or, at his office or at his apartment, something there. And again, obviously we don't know because the gag order is so broad and, we didn't have a prelim and the DA proceeded by grand jury, which was expected. But if there was that smoking gun, I would have thought that maybe someone would have reported it because there's so much coverage of this case. But, we might not know until trial starts as to really what the state has here.
Maybe there actually do have people that are being quiet and following the gag order. Who knows?
It's possible.
Given the seriousness and the gravity of the crime, and we're talking now roughly 2 months until this could be going to trial if everything stays on track. How do you view the approach to jury selection to ensure impartiality in a case like this that is so big, that's in a small town of 25,000 people where unless you're dead or living under a rock, you certainly know about it?
Yeah, especially now with social media, everyone in the world has heard about this case. Certainly everyone in the United States and certainly in the state of Idaho. Now as the defense is going to file, try to, challenge the venue, get things moved. I'm not saying that these have a chance to success, but just to create additional appellate issues. We saw this happen with Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow. They had a big Idaho case that recently, Lori Vallow was just convicted and sentenced to life. And Chad Daybell's going to trial soon. He's still facing the death penalty. So, I expect the defense to, file those motions. I expect jury selection to take a very long time. It kind of reminds me of something like, Derek Chauvin and George Floyd. Everyone in the country has seen and heard about this case. So it's going to be tough to find jurors that really are going to be fair and impartial. So I would expect days and days, if not a week plus, of jury selection.
This is an examination of the hidden human condition.
This is the Hidden Killers Podcast.
With Tony Brueski.